morning and welcome again to Sada News. So today we are Chloe, Medina and Lehner, and today we're going to talk about Airbnb. So the question is Airbnb responsible for higher rent price in some cities? How can this situation be regulated?
So today we are going to interview economics professor who is specialized in the housing market. So Junior, what is your opinion regarding the claims that Airbnb is responsible for higher rent prices in certain cities?
Okay, first off, thanks for having me on your show. Now, in my humble yet informed opinion, I believe that Airbnb takes the supply out of the long-term rental market and reallocates it into the short-term rental market. This short-term market, besides catering to this new market, also is destined towards tourists and towards people who are looking for short-term rentals. Now, due to a simple cause and effect reaction, this will reduce the supply of long-term rentals in the market, which will increase the price of these same rentals. Now, home prices rise with rent. So basically, Airbnb provides homeowners with the capability to generate income on their own behalf with their own houses, which makes these house prices even more valuable.
So that takes us to our next question. Was it predicted that Airbnb would have an effect on the rental market?
Honestly, when Airbnb began to gain traction in the market, us economists had no idea what to expect. There were even some economists who dared to say that Airbnb wouldn't have enough power or capacity to affect the rental market. But what we're seeing enough is that local residents looking for a long-term rental unit find approximately 1 in every 13 units are on Airbnb, which is 7%. Now, that's the average that we're seeing across countries. Now, in the higher end neighborhoods, we can see up to 1-to-1 ratio, where for every apartment that there is in the long-term rental market, we see one posted on Airbnb, which means that the market is huge for Airbnb.
Okay, so it has been shown in certain case studies that Airbnb has had varying impacts on different neighborhoods. What is your take on that?
I believe that owner occupancy is to blame for that. I've observed that Airbnb listings are highly responsive with higher housing prices and rental rates in neighborhoods with less owner occupants. Now, other than that, if you have the possibility to live in a high-end neighborhood on a short-term basis, wouldn't you want to live and try it out? Now, Airbnb increases rental rates because landlords are taking homes out of the long-term rental market and they're putting it back in the short-term market. If owners were to live in their home, they wouldn't be able to lease out or to rent out these apartments on a long-term basis. So what most homeowners do nowadays is that they put their home on Airbnb if they have a spare room or if they're going out on vacation, so they have more opportunity to gain more income from their houses.
Another question we've got for you, Mr. Junior, is what are some other impacts that Airbnb has had in the real estate market?
Well, wherever we saw Airbnb growth, we saw a decrease in vacant homes for rent. Yet we saw an increase in short-term rentals for vacation homes. Now, these vacation homes under the US Census are seen as vacant homes because they're not used throughout the year. Yet with these Airbnb rentals, they can rent them out in different areas or for different time periods, and they are not seen as vacant anymore, and they're seen as used property.
So Junior, some policymakers argue that action should be taken in order to avoid permanent long-term damage to the market. Do you agree that measures should be taken regarding Airbnb and the real estate market?
Well, start off, I believe that one of the measures that should be taken by the governments is to stop these landlords from switching their rentals from long-term to short-term. Now, having said this, they should not restrict people from sharing their households to gain extra income. For example, as I've previously stated, many people who use Airbnb probably rent out an extra room they have in their apartment or in their home, or rent out their home when they go to vacation. Here, they are not taking, it's not a property that was on the long-term rental market, yet it's a property that they use to gain more income. So in this case, I believe that Airbnb should be allowed to be used freely by landlords, yet reinstating what I previously said, I do not believe that people should be able just to switch their properties from the long-term market to the short-term market, seeing it's caused imbalance in the market.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Junior, for being here today.
My pleasure.
And now
we're going to go to the field to talk to an Airbnb host who owns and rents an apartment in New York, and this is Chris P. Bacon.
Thank you, Chloe and Carolina, for that introduction. Today I'm here with Chris P. Bacon, who is a person in New York who uses Airbnb to rent out his apartment. So, Chris P. Bacon, do you believe that Airbnb helps you utilize your home in a better way, and why?
Of course I believe that Airbnb helps me utilize my home in a better way. Imagine that now I can go on a vacation and make money because of it. Not only that, seeing as I have an extra room in my house, I can always rent it out if I want some extra cash, if I'm feeling a bit lonely, if you know what I mean.
How much money do you make with Airbnb? Would you consider it an important added revenue?
Of course, it's a substantial added revenue. I mean, imagine if for a little to no work, someone just came up to you and at the end of the month handed you a check for $900. I bet you wouldn't mind, right?
Crispy Bacon had an emergency, had to leave us, unfortunately, but we're here today with Joris, Jamar, Joaris, and Lamar, who has apartments, as you can see behind me, but only for long term. We have a few questions for him. So, Joris, Jamar, Joaris, and Lamar, what changes have you seen personally in the long-term rental market?
Well, ever since Airbnb came into the market, we've had less and less supply of these long-term rentals, and I'm one of the only property owners around all of New York City who has one of these huge apartment buildings for rent long-term. So for me, it's great. I mean, for me, I have a ton of demand and a ton of people wanting to come in. I just wish I had more money in order to buy more buildings, but I don't have that. Just have this one building and I'm renting it all out. It's 100% occupied.
How has this affected you personally?
Well, I mean, look at this jacket I'm wearing. Personally, I'm doing great. This whole building's rented out and I'm making more money than I've ever been making. The only thing is I have to see what other apartments I buy because this demand just keeps coming in, but there's no more supply. Everyone's looking for, there's only short-term people who want short-term rentals, and I'm one of the only long-term rentals.
Finally, do you regard Airbnb as something positive or negative for property owners?
Depends which way you look at it. I mean, me that I own a whole building, for me it's good. For me, I'm making money with this huge building. But some property owners just don't like it. They think that they're taking away their business, they're taking away their renters. Nah, I think just the way you look at it and the way you adapt to the situation is key.
Thank you. So now I'm here with Mark, an individual who actually lives in this apartment building, and we're going to ask him a few questions as well. Mark, how's your life in the apartment?
Well, it's been very tough these last couple of years. Prices have risen. Most of the money I make per month has to go into paying for my apartment. And given that there's so little supply, the landowner has all the power.
Thank you, Mark, for that interesting insight into life in an apartment for long-term rent. And that's the show for today. Back to you guys.